just finished watching The Hangover. Bruno Mars has taken over the airwaves. Manchester United are falling in the football team. We're going back to the 2010s, looking at the best drivers for 2010-2019.
Did that all happen round about then? Oh Christ.
I think that's when United started falling apart.
Makes me feel old. Anyway, yes, we are looking at the 2010s and taking in 5 drivers who we think are the best across those 10 years.
Yeah, and if Sam's feeling extra charitable with the editing, he will now put up an embarrassing photo of us each during the 2010s from our teenage years, right about now.
Yeah, I might not. I'm not sure that needs to go public.
You had an afro.
Yeah, I know. But yeah, we'll get straight into it then. And our first driver on the list, bearing in mind we're not in any real order, go and see the last one. If you haven't seen this one or that one yet, we explain everything that we're doing.
All
with
the
these
house,
top 5s.
all the house rules are in there. We don't need to repeat them. What has been?
Nothing.
Okay. All the house rules are in there. We don't need to repeat them here. As Sam says, go watch that video.
Yep, so the first driver on our list for the 2010s is Colin Turkington. He drove from 2013 to 2019. Along the way, he won 37 races, took 3 championships.
Is that it? 37? Is that it?
It's Turkington, it's consistency.
That is...
Consistent Colin.
That is... Wow.
Shocking.
Okay. Yeah. To be honest with you, yeah.
Out of 234 races, he was runner-up twice, and his worst championship finish in those years was just 5th, which shows a hell of a consistency.
Oh, look, he's consistent, and it's won him 3 titles during this period. I can't argue with that, but I'm genuinely shocked that 234 races is similar to what Plato had raced from our last video. Yeah. And Plato had got, I suppose, he 11 more wins off the top of my head. Wow.
Next championships?
I don't know, I'm just... Mind you, whenever I look at Turkington's numbers, I'm always slightly underwhelmed. For what he's achieved compared to what the stats say, I'm always slightly underwhelmed. But
he has this aura of being utterly consistent and scoring those middling to good finishes, 3rds to 7th, so consistently that he just keeps on banking the points, which is what's taken him to 3 titles in this period. And the wins weren't really a big thing for him, were they?
Well, clearly not. No, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I guess it just goes to prove that it's not all about winning.
Nope.
It's about that age-old saying, to finish first you must finish.
Yep.
Yeah, I think that's just hit me slightly. I'm just quite surprised. You think about it, you split those 3 championships against those wins, divide those wins by 3 is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
And it's what? 13 wins a championship? More or less?
Just short of, yeah.
12 wins a championship.
Yeah. That's out of 30 races.
Maybe. Yeah, maybe.
And it's not just those seasons. Obviously, he was runner-up in 2 of 2 more. So, he's always been that driver that is like right on the verge of getting that 5th. He was the quickest to get to 4.
Yeah.
And, sorry, excluding Rouse, because we're not looking at him at the moment. But, yeah, he's always been that driver that's been there or thereabouts. He may well be coming over his peak now, which we will discuss at a later point. But yeah, 3 championships in 8 years.
Oh, yeah, there's no doubt about it. Turkington will go down as one of the all-time touring car greats. There's no doubt about it. I'm just slightly underwhelmed with the stats. That's all. But look, he's won 3 more than I've ever won. So.
Yes, and me. But do you know what is more surprising for me?
Go on.
Is that our next contender, shall I say, Gordon Shedden, raced from 2010 to 2017, has a similarly scarily close record to that of Turkington. Wins 38, so 1 more. Again, 3 championships. 6 more races, so 240 in the same time period, effectively. Runner-up twice, once again, and his worst finish in championship was 4th.
Yeah, I think it goes under the radar just how good Shedden was during this period. Obviously, he wasn't really considered for our last video in the hundreds because he wasn't really in his peak. But yeah, he was a scary force during this era of touring cars.
And his teammate Matt Neal was always there or thereabouts to back him up and give him those opportunities to win those 3 titles and to come close again in 2 of them.
Yeah, I must admit, doing these videos has made me feel a little bit sad in a way. Insofar as that, I really miss having a Team Dynamics car on the grid. Look how good they've been for the sport over the last 20 years.
Yeah.
And how important they've been. I mean, how many championships they won between them? 6 between them?
Yeah. It's a staggering amount. Yeah. And considering it is more of a sort of independent team, a family-run team that has been there or thereabouts for a consistent 18 or so years.
70 wins in this period between the two of them.
It's pretty good numbers.
It's really good.
And considering this wasn't the peak necessarily for Team Dynamics. I argue
the peak already happened.
Yeah, I argue that the peak was when they were in the Integra and those bright orange Halfords cars.
What's you're saying? Having a legal car ruins the peak. Interesting.
But yeah, we know that the majority of the time they ran the Honda Civic, though we did see that wagon for one season, didn't we?
What a beautiful season it was. And whatever happens, I'll always have the time they took each other off at Alton Park to fall back on in dark moments. That was a superb piece of BTCC heritage.
But yeah, as you say, I think Shedden's achievements do go a little bit under the radar, especially when you compare them in this era to Colin. And I don't know, I knew he was good, but looking at the stats really proves how good he was.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think that you can forget how good a driver he was when you don't look at the stats. Those stats have surprised me the other way a little bit. I didn't realise he'd got that many wins during that period. Yeah. And it's going to sound really dumb. I always forget he's a 3-time touring car champion because he's not spoken about in the same breath as Neil or Plato or Turkington. The similar drivers from that era. He's not really spoken about in the same breath, but he definitely won 3, yeah?
Yeah, definitely won 3. Yeah. So, moving on to our third driver in the list then, and it is Shedden's teammate for the majority of that time, Matt Neal, racing from 2010 to 2019. Took 32 wins over that time, gaining another one of the championships, which we spoke about.
Did they finish on 3 each?
I think so.
See, in my mind, I always had Neil have one more. Are you sure he definitely wants 3?
Do you want me to check my stats? You check the stats. I'll keep reading that,
Neil.
In that time, Neil had 297 races, finished runner-up twice, and worst championship finish was 9th, and I think that was in the 2019 season, where we knew that Team Dynamics were struggling a little bit more for pace. I think 2019 was when Camish had come into that team and was really running at the forefront.
Yeah, you're right. You did it 3 times.
Yeah.
2012, 2015, 2016. Do you know what? I never have Shedden down. I know we've moved on to Matt Neal, but I never had him down as a 3-time winner.
Yeah.
And
the fact that he retained the title as well just also goes to show you how much consistency he had from one season to the next, even with those slight changes in the Team Dynamics cars. You're still checking, aren't you?
Well, I'm trying to, but for some reason he's only got you've done with it, that's why.
But yeah, Matt Neal during this period was possibly past his peak. Obviously, we've spoken about him in the previous top 5 video in the noughties, where he took 2 championship wins and was one of the real forerunners for the championship. But how do you think he levels up against Turkington and Shedden in this era?
I don't think he touched them in this era, personally. I'm still reeling about Shedden. I must admit, during this period, I did drop out in and out of the touring cars a little bit with teenagers, finding other things for teenagers to do, and university,
and stuff like that.
Yeah, I did. I'm not as avid a watcher in this period as I was now, but yeah, the Shedden stuff's floored me because Matt Neal and Plato and Turkington are to a level above him when you talk about him. That's crazy. Go back to your question though. Matt Neal's nowhere near those 2 in this era. Overall, I don't want to get into that debate now because the video will be too long and people will shout and get very angry with me. But yeah, in this era, no, Matt Neal is nowhere near. He deserves his place in this 5 list, but he's nowhere near those 2 during this era, in my opinion.
So with this one, we had a little bit of a toss-up between Matt Neal and Plato, but I think Matt Neal just edges it in the 2010 period.
What? Over Plato, you mean?
Yes.
Oh, I thought you meant over these 2.
Not over these 2, just over the fact that we had a toss-up between the 2. I do think Plato's best years were in the noughties, which is why he is in that list and not in this one.
Yeah, he's not in this one, which is interesting given that he won basically half the races in the tens, half in the hundreds. He won a championship in each era. But I agree with you. I don't think he does belong in this list, which will go down like a cup of cold sick with some. But no, I agree with you. I think his best years were behind him at this point. Yeah. That's only because his standard was so high, by the way. That's part of the reason.
Yeah, and going through this period, I don't want to speak about it too much, but he chopped and changed cars a lot as well, which I don't think helped his progress.
Did roll it for spectacular at Donington, though, which is another BTCC heritage moment.
He did. Moving on to the next driver then, Andrew Jordan this time round.
Okay.
Went from 2010 to 2019, so covered all 10 years, won 26 races, took one championship, had 295 races in that time, and his worst finishing championship was 10th. Never a runner-up, though. Do you think his championship was a flash in the pan?
Sometimes I think you can get in my head and read it, because in my mind, of all the drivers we've discussed today on this video and in the previous one, he comes to mind as the most overrated in the list.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. Interesting.
He had a lot of good machinery during his time in the touring cars. I'd argue he didn't win enough races, enough championships.
He had, towards the end of his career in the touring cars, he had conflict of interest throughout the team, I think.
There was some problems, some debates,
which I don't think allowed him to necessarily capture that talent that he had.
I don't know. I mean, we're talking about the fallout towards the end of his career with WSR. He was still in the BMW, which ultimately won the championship with Colin Turkington that year when counted the brake failure. And he was in the championship fight until the very end.
Dare I say,
you can say he wouldn't be allowed to win, but he's on the pitch. What are they going to do?
Yeah.
What are they going to do?
I know.
Call him in? Yes. No, thank you. Come in into a tyre car now. Don't. Yeah. Unless they literally threw a boulder at him from the pit wall, which I suspect would result in some complication of Alan Gow. I know what you're saying, but...
Unless it was Alan Gow. I'm not getting into that.
I know what you're saying, but... Yeah, there's only so much the team can do. Once you think back to Lewis Hamilton, Nico Rosberg, Lewis back off, I suggest you let us race.
Yeah.
Once you're on the track, it's not a great deal the team can do to manage
No one else can really make those decisions.
No. Until you're both in a barrier through turns 3 and 4 at Spain, because you're both been a little bit silly.
26 wins in those 10 years.
Yeah.
A little shy?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
As I say, overrated is quite a harsh word that I've used going back a few sentences. I just think that could he have achieved more? But I suppose in some ways, I think when he got that first win, the thing is, well,
with an independent team, I must add.
Yeah, it just kind of felt that he proved everything there was to prove, and anything else was a bonus. Whereas I never got the feeling that
never had that hunger to go for a lot more, like Sutton nowadays.
Yeah, Sutton 1 wasn't enough, 2 isn't enough, 3 isn't enough, 4 won't be enough, 5 won't be enough, 6 won't be enough. it will never be enough for Sutton.
Yeah.
And Plato and Neil had that to a degree as well. It was never really enough.
Yeah.
He won it in 2013 and then didn't really do a lot else in. It sounds really harsh for the way, but he won it in 2013. For the rest of that era, didn't really do. You're saying he was never runner-up.
Yep.
He was in a couple of championship battles, but
yeah,
I don't know.
Let us know your thoughts on Andy Jordan, because he has been a figure in the touring cars, obviously, for a substantial amount of time. Do you think he deserves a place on this list, or who would you replace him with?
Yeah, it's really difficult. I don't want to come across as nasty in anything like that, because he's a really good driver. Clearly, he's proven it among multiple series.
Yep.
He's cleared a lovely time in the minis now.
Loves it.
Family are great.
Yep.
He was a really nice guy on the.
Loves the classic racing as well at Goodwood and stuff like that.
He was a really nice guy on the grid, and fans loved him because he was very polite and had a lot of time for the fans, etc.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just perhaps similar to maybe Klopp's Liverpool, we just kind of felt that one was enough, and they never really had that burning desire to get another one.
Well, we'll get on to the final man in this list then.
Yeah, a little bit left field.
And the arguably least successful in championships. Well, definitely least successful in championships.
Didn't win any.
But he won quite a high percentage of his races.
Yeah, so when we did some of the TikTok content earlier in the year, we looked at, I found a great website for stats, and this next driver has the greatest race to win ratio of the modern era.
Yeah.
I can't remember the percentage. I mean, that'd be silly.
It's difficult to believe, but yeah. So Matt Jackson raced from 2010 to 2017. Across a couple of different variations of cars, BMWs, Ford Focuses and stuff. He won 20 races in that period, which doesn't sound a lot. Didn't take a championship win, unfortunately. But in that period, it was only 225 races that he competed in. His best finish was 3rd in the championship, his worst finish being 12th. But that year that he finished 12th was only half a season. And he took a good number of wins during that half season that he competed in.
I'll try to see if I can find the website.
He was always a very quick driver, and he was there or thereabouts with the fastest drivers on the grid most weekends. And some of his drives, I remember, I'm going to bring something out for the history books here, and Mum will appreciate this one. His drive at Snetterton one year, where, do you remember they used to have that vote for the best drive of the season sort of thing? Luckily enough, Mum won, and we got to have a VIP experience with him at Brands Hatch at the final round, which was an excellent experience, and he's a very, very nice man. And I think that if it weren't for his falling out with teams and owners and stuff like that, then he should have won a lot more and achieved a lot more and been on the grid for a lot longer, and could even still be on the grid now.
I don't wish to put a down on the stats, but this particular website has him down in 28th behind. Do you feel when we did this season's probably changed some things? So Ingram is now ahead of him, which would have been the case at the start of the season, as is Turkington. James Thompson is ahead of him in terms of wins, as is Shedden, as is Plato, as is Muller, as is Winkelhock. There goes Winkelhock. Gordon Spice. So there are quite a few ahead of him, actually, but some of those competed less races. But his win percentage is very good anyway.
What are your thoughts on him as a driver?
My thoughts on him as a driver is that he should have achieved far, far more. Politics, there's lots of stories around why he's not on the grid. But I think he was unlucky not to win the championship in 2009, was it? I know that's outside this period. Was it 2009 where he was?
He got very close one season.
In the BMW 3 Series.
Yeah, and he was exceptionally quick in that time.
Yeah. No, I think he's a really good driver. I think we're never going to see him on the grid again, which is a shame. But yeah, I think he's worthy of his place on this list because he was incredibly quick and won a hell of a lot during that time period.
Okay then, we did this in the last video. Who is your number one from this list of 5? And then I'll let you know mine.
I mean, it's probably Shedden.
Why?
I'd argue that he had... do you say... It's going to sound quite... What's the word?
Go on, get it out.
It's going to sound quite, I can't remember what the word is when it's obvious. When you say it's obvious, cliched.
Yes.
But Turkington had very good cars during this era.
Yeah.
As did Shedden, arguably.
As did Shedden in the FK2 Civic.
Yeah, as did Shedden, arguably. I don't know, those stats are quite good. If you were to make the case for Turkington, I wouldn't say, ha, you're wrong. I would say, yeah, okay, I can understand why you come to that.
Yeah.
I think that what pushes it for Shedden for me is that he had a much harder teammate to beat in his own team, let alone the rest of the grid.
Yeah.
Matt Neal was still winning races and championship in this era. Turkington was racing most of the time amongst drivers that you would expect him to beat.
He was.
And had the full backing of the team.
The team leader, wasn't he? Yeah, and he was always the driver with the preferential treatment.
And don't forget, Shedden's winning in a team owned by his teammate's dad.
Yes.
Which will, I'd imagine, have complications.
Could do. But they've always...
Would you want to race in a team owned by my dad with me?
Certainly. We won't get into that. Certainly on the surface, it seems as if...
The asphalt surface.
Yes.
Yeah.
It seems as if Shedden and Neal have always had a really good relationship.
I agree, but both would have wanted to win against each other.
Yes, they certainly would.
I think Shedden, for me, pips it in this era just because of who he was up against in his own team, let alone the rest of the grid.
Yeah.
But as I say, if you were to make the case of Turkington, I wouldn't shout at you or cover you in cold water and scream you're wrong.
I know they're not going to like it, mate, but I think I have to agree. And that is mainly because of the fact that, yes, okay, he's got one more win, he's done a couple more races though, but the fact that his lowest finish in 8 seasons was 4th in a championship, it's just...
Yeah, let's just list some of the names in this era. So he's beating Jackson, who we discussed.
Yep.
Obviously Jordan on this list. he's beaten obviously Neil Turkington, Collard's, the Jellies, Plato's not on this list.
Yep.
Toured off in this period.
Chilton. There are all sorts of drivers that have come and gone, and he's been there for a substantial amount of time. And it's a little bit of a shame that he hasn't been able to continue that into the 2020s.
Yeah, I hope we've not seen the last of Shedden. I fear we probably have. But who is your number one? Why are we wrong? Why is it somebody else? Are we wrong to leave Plato out in favour for Jackson? What's your thoughts on Andrew Jordan? Is Matt Neal better in this era or in the 2000s? We want to know. Comment below. As I say, but if you disagree, don't leave a negative reviews because you disagree. Let's all be adults here.
But yeah, we will be back again soon, and we'll probably be looking at a couple of other top fives. One we certainly will be doing is underrated drivers since 2000. So let us know your thoughts on what those drivers could be in the comments.
And we'll be probably having a full-on argument during that video, so you probably want to make sure you've got the bell ticked to be notified of any new videos. Make sure you are subscribed, make sure you like the video, make sure you tell somebody about it. As I say, YouTube, as well as podcasts and Spotify, are making algorithms more and more complex to understand as you have some form of NASA engineering degree, which neither of us do possess.
Do you not?
No.
Did you not get that in the post?
No, I didn't. I didn't complete my Open University course on that, so no, I've been too busy learning Spanish.
Okay.
But yes, por favor, please leave a good review, and please tell somebody about the podcast who might want to listen to it.
Yep, we'll be back again next week.
Adios.